Hi everyone, I'm Nina, and today I'm going to talk you into, if you're not already, homeschooling and why homeschooling is so important for your young ones as opposed to the traditional classroom. Now, with that being said, I know there's an understanding with me that it's not necessarily doable for everyone, and I'm not talking to those people. I'm talking to people who maybe haven't thought of it as an option or it's crossed their mind, but things that you can do to incorporate that or change the lifestyle of your kids and yourself. So I'm going to start with a little schooling timeline, background information of how school came to be, and how we've kind of worked our way up until today's times. So the first high school, fun enough, was established in 1820. So it took 30 years for the first truancy laws to actually be put into place. Then in 1867, the Department of Education was established because homeschooling was always like a norm. It wasn't called homeschooling, it was just schooling. You were either educated or you were working. So that kind of puts that into perspective for you in those times. So in 1960, it took almost over 100 years for educational reformers to start questioning public schooling's methods and results. So kind of what's going on, everyone's learning the same bit of information. Is it even stuff that I want my kids to know or that I think is important was kind of coming into play. And then 20 years later, in 1980, homeschooling was legal in 20 states in the United States, obviously, only 20 of them. And then it wasn't until 13 years later till the rest of the 30 kind of jumped on board and it was legal in all 50. So 6 years later, the U.S. Department of Education's National Council for Educational Statistics places the homeschooling number to 850,000. So it kind of seems like a lot of students, but in the grand scheme of things, the number of students in America, it was actually at that point only 1.7% of the student population. So, big picture, wasn't that many, but it was enough to have like rules into play and like a curriculum kind of thing. So in 2003, so 4 years later, another count places the student rate at just under 1.1 million, so a good increase there, but it still only averaged the student population to about 2%. And then in 2012, 1.77 million to that average was 3.4 of the student percentage. So kind of cool information to see how things have increased, what the numbers look like, and what other people are thinking and doing. So a little background information if you're not sure what counts as homeschooling, what is homeschooling, as opposed to the traditional classroom. Well, homeschooling is just essentially learning outside of the public or private school environment. It can also be called elective home education or just home education, and it's to teach school subjects to one's children at home. So really super easy, might be exactly what you thought it was. So homeschooling is actually the fastest growing form of education in the country, and when COVID happened, those numbers obviously shot up because parents were kind of seeing their kids logging in, and from, just an example, but elementary schools, students obviously sitting down for a good period of time wasn't necessarily ideal. Being put in a classroom with all your friends interacting and the teacher being able to correct you and getting away from parents in that traditional home, outside of the home, it can be a little distracting to be at home with other stuff going on. If other people are in class, you're kind of just, it's easy to be distracted and pulled into something else. So that takes me to my first point. As parents, as teachers, approach to this is a good parental bonding and flexible teaching methods. So it's not only parent and child, it's also teacher and student. You have a whole other dynamic and a whole other relationship that you get to build with your child. But also flexible teaching methods and customizable lessons. If you kind of notice that your kid is falling a little bit behind in one subject and now the schooling has already jumped to another one to stay on task, you as a parent are able to spend a little more time or give them a little more examples or kind of see what they need and see what is fit to them in order for them to grasp that lesson a little better. So the best learning style overall for your child or student. Another pro is more physical activity. So important. So the National Association for Sport and Physical Education says that all elementary school children should be provided with one recess period of at least 20 minutes. One recess period of 20 minutes if you didn't get it the first time. Again, grand scheme, full day, 8 hours at school, and you get 20 minutes to run around and give your mind a break and kind of get moving and release anything that you may have been going on. And it's so much more important than 20 minutes of the day to get students to do whatever they want. If they want to dig in the grass, if they want to play tag with their friends, it's so important that we let them do that. It can't just be hammering things into their little brains the whole time. So with that being said, 16% of U.S. children are overweight. So it just goes to show again that it's just not enough. A big con, a scary con, is overteaching in certain areas versus an equal scheduled time period for each subject. So, an example, if your family is big on religion and you think that is something that needs to take 60% of the time of the day, you are then hammering the books of the Bible or the Ten Commandments into your children instead of making it an even amount of science, history, math, an elective, something fun that they choose, that they want to learn about, that you can educate yourself on and teach them about and get excited about, kind of bond over. So the parents kind of taking over that, what they think is important, and putting that onto their children is a big concern. Also, parents are then not able to focus 100% on their pre-existing careers. That applies to you and your family. If you are not able to separate homeschooling in the morning and working at night, which I get a lot of people aren't able to do that, or being able to log in when you want, working from home, online, or whatever that is, that might not be available to some people, or if it is, being able to stick to a strict schedule. Also, parents need to understand that commitment and responsibility and following a tight schedule is very important. Some days you want to wake up and not have school, and then it's easy to not go to school again, or to stick to one thing for maybe too long can be just a big snowball effect, as opposed to sticking to a strict schedule. So scheduling is very important. So another con, the socialization aspect, exposure to diversity and independence. People always get very, very nervous about their kids being weird because they're homeschooled, because there is that lack of socialization. You don't see, tons of hundreds and sometimes only 20 to hundreds of kids on a daily basis. You're not interacting without your parents or somebody looking over you and telling you right from wrong. There's none of that. You just by yourself interacting with other people your age, older, younger. So, all of that is obviously super important, but a solution I have to that would be kind of working more field trips into their schooling if you decide to do that, working it into all of your lessons. If you are doing nature or whatever, go to the park. If you're learning about sea life, take your kids to the aquarium, zoos for natural, just looking at animals. If you're learning about animals, take them to the zoo. There's museums for history, there's malls for math, there's so many things that you can do with your kids. Which leads me to another pro. So safety is a big pro. You have more tight control over what your students and kids are learning, what they're exposed to. So all the potential threats that public school kind of offers, it brings that down to a minimum. As far as shootings, bullying, kidnaps, threats, and peer pressure goes, all those can be brought down to a good minimum because they're with you. You have eyes on your own students. As long as the learning environment at home is safe and secure, then that all comes down. So in conclusion, there are so many amazing benefits for your children as students and for the parents as well. So that being said, homeschooling should be a must. Thank you.